Hi there, this is Kathy with Sycamore and Cotton, and I'm so happy that you've landed on my channel. Welcome back if you're returning, and welcome for the first time if you're new here. I hope that you will find something that makes you want to keep coming back to see every new video. This week I have some more new trash to treasures, turning thrifted items into beautiful home decor. So let's get started. Our first project is this napkin holder. It is made from metal and it has a black and gold finish. And I thrifted it from St. Simon's Island while we were on family vacation down there in Georgia. And I thought that it would sell pretty quickly in my booth, and it didn't. So I brought it home and decided to put some rub and buff on it to make it more of an aged brass look rather than that dark finish that has a little bit of gold through it. I didn't take a good picture beforehand. I'm really bad about taking before pictures, unfortunately, but you can see there that it was more black than it was gold. And so I'm just applying the rub and buff. I started with the sponge, but I'll tell you, these sponge brushes, I don't know, they just don't ever work well for me. But I did use it as much as I could, and ended up actually, as you can see there, taking the sponge off of the little wood dowel that it comes on and then just using it that way. But I also use my fingers and just get one good even coat all over the tops, the sides, the little feet there. And I was just looking at this thinking, you know, it is a napkin holder, but it could be used for other things too. This would look so beautiful sitting on a desk as a file holder. I may even keep it for myself for my desk, who knows. I often have that dilemma when I'm working on projects. If you're a reseller, is that an issue that you have problems with sometimes, liking or a project so well that you want to keep it for yourself? I do that with thrifted items that I don't even touch sometimes as well. It's just things that are nice to begin with and don't need any extra embellishment. But that's all I did for this. I'm using an antique gold rub and buff, and if you've not tried rub and buff before, you can absolutely do so much with it. And there's hardly a project that I do on my videos that at least one that I don't pull out the rub and buff for. It really enhances an item. So let me know what you think of this. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I hope that you are too. Now on to the next project, which is a mirror. And this mirror was thrifted just a short while back, and it was in pretty bad shape, pretty rough shape. And it's a pretty old mirror as well. I could tell that from the backing on it, but it had some stickers on it. The wood on it was not in the best shape. So I decided, after cleaning that sticker off, I decided to do a kind of intense project. Not hard, but intense, because what I plan to do is use one of the IOD molds to cover all the sides with castings made of air dry clay. After removing the sticker, then I start to clean it really well. It's put together well. The backing is held in with little nails, and it's really solid wood. There were enough nicks in the wood, though, that I really did not want to try to just sand it and paint it, and that's why I decided to go with the air dry castings. And I'm sorry about the mirror catching my ring light. But what I'm doing here is getting as much of the dirt and grime out from under the edge of the frame. It was pretty dirty, and I'm not cleaning the mirror right now. I'll clean it when I'm finished. Right now I'm getting the air dry clay out, and I'm going to start making the castings. And these are about, I don't know, 6 inches. So when you think about going around that entire frame, it's not a huge frame, but it takes several of these castings to go all the way around. And I did decide to use the thinner one. This is the Trimmings Mold 4. I've actually had this for a year, and this is my first time using it. I use the, what kind of clay is that? Sculpey. It's Sculpey clay, and I get it from Walmart. I think you can probably get it from other places as well, but that's what I'm using. You can use any kind that that you prefer, but this one works well for me. Here I'm using a brayer just to try to get a flat edge on the back of it as much as I can, and using my thumbs to clean away or clear away, smooth the edges. I like to dip my hand in a little bit of the cornstarch. Let me back up a little bit. If you're using air dry clay, you should always apply a little cornstarch to your mold before putting your air dry clay in. It helps it to release better. So here I'm just trying to figure out where do I want this to go along the frame. And at first I brought it all the way down to just above the mirror, just right at the edge of the lip of the frame. One of the good things about these trimmings molds is that they are designed, if you'll notice the ends there, the ends are designed to connect with each other in a seamless fashion. So I can work that seam in as close as possible to the next piece. And also, and what you saw me do with that little yellow tool was to trim away the excess clay from the back so that I would have a smooth, not only a smooth surface on the back, but also I would have the same thickness of each casting. Now here I'm piecing the corner together, and honestly I think I ended up doing it different ways on each corner. This is kind of the first time I've done a full, well actually it is the first time that I've done an entire frame using castings. So it was a little bit of a challenge for me on the corners, even though I've seen others do it before, and I think they turned out just fine, but it was a little bit of a challenge. I'll try to show you a different one when I get there. So I jumped ahead and slowed it down a little bit to show you how I did this corner, and I actually did not do it 100% correctly. As you can see, I laid the one piece on top of the piece that was already there, and then I cut an angle on both of them, except the piece that was already there did not come all the way down to the end. So that left me with a space to fill in. So I decided to take that smaller piece that I cut off, put it back down into the mold and reshape it just enough to get in there and fill in that space. And as you can see there, it fit right in. Like I mentioned, the ends fit together. Then I placed the other part over that and did my cut. So there was just a tiny bit there to cut from the bottom piece, or the piece that was already placed. So that worked out well, and I get it placed there, and then just continue on with more of the same process, one by one, making each casting and placing it along the frame. I'm not gluing it yet though. I'm just getting everything on there to make sure that everything is going to fit together and placed before I start using the glue. This took, well, I had about half a package of my Sculpey clay, and I had to open another package. It did not use the entire it did not even use half of the new package. I would say maybe 1/3 or maybe a quarter of the second package. So it does take a bit of the clay, but it's worth it in the long run, I think. So here I have jumped ahead to the gluing process, and I just take one piece, one by one. I apply Tite Bond quick and thick glue to the back, and then I use my little tool there to spread it out, making sure that I have glue all over the back side and along the edges of each piece, because you want complete coverage on the or complete attachment to the frame. And here I'm being a lot more careful on the placing and making sure that I bend the edges over, because this trimmings mold, this smaller one, is even wider than the frame itself. So it does fold over the back side, and I leave it that way. I guess I could have cut it, but I just decided to leave it. I also, in placing or in gluing the castings on, I moved it back just past the lip of the frame, and I'm much happier with how that looks. In the beginning, if you recall, I was placing it almost down to the mirror itself, but I like having left that little lip that's original to the frame. And this is a side note to myself. Be sure and fix your hair on the days you're going to be videoing. There's way too much of me caught in the mirror, and I'm sorry for looking so goofy, but that is actually how I look most of the time when I'm at my studio. I just get up, wash my face, brush my teeth, take my vitamins, get my protein drink, and of course get dressed and take off to just down the bottom of the hill from our house to where my studio is. And my hair is not usually on my list of concerns. It's short, and usually I just run my fingers through it or put on a headband, but it's pretty wild this day because I did not put on a headband. Anyway, back to the mirror. I worked all the edges together as well as I could, and I did pull out a paintbrush that was damp and just kind of worked it along the seams to try to have a seamless as possible connection on each piece, hoping that would help prevent cracking. It didn't. I had quite a bit of cracking, but it wasn't anything that couldn't be fixed. But after I had it all glued down and was happy with the placement, I then started painting it with a red paint. I do that because gold paint is a semi-translucent color, and it's harder to get a good coverage because of that. So if you put down a red base before applying the gold, it helps you to get a deeper, warmer finish from the gold once you've applied it. And it just makes for a better look. I do use black sometimes as well, but it's when I'm going for more of an aged look. I honestly haven't done a comparison to see which I like best, but I do know that in looking it up online, red is the color that is known to be used for a base before gold painting or gold leaf or anything that you put a gold finish on that is of a thin, transparent product. After getting it fully painted in the red, I leave it overnight and let it dry. And the next morning I come in and find that just as I expected, and as I mentioned earlier, there was some cracking, and I'm showing you those here. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit of pulling apart. That looked like a worm, didn't it? It's actually a very thin piece of air dry clay that I rolled up to try to fit down into those grooves where the air dry clay separated. A lot of times I will mix up the air dry clay and dilute it with some water, mix it down to make it more of a paste, and apply it that way. But I wanted to be able to make sure that I had these cracks filled completely, and that would not have been the best option for this. I do end up making some slurry, which is what that's called when you thin your air dry clay. I did end up making some to then go over it, but to begin with, I'm using just these tiny bits of air dry clay and just going along and filling all the cracks. And one of the good things about this is it certainly shows up with the red paint. And I don't put another coat of red over it when I get this done and allow that to dry. I'll just move on to the next step, which will be the gold paint. So here you can see where I did use a brush and the slurry just a little bit to go through and smooth those places after applying the air dry clay. And I leave it to dry like this. And then I tape up the mirror part itself after it has dried and take it out and spray paint it. I haven't used spray paint before for a project like this, so it remains to be seen how this works out for me. I give it 2 good coats. And I think it worked well. I think that the connections all look fine and don't really show. That's one of the things when you've got a frame that is as detailed. Things like that don't tend to show as much. So I'm happy with that. The next day after it had dried, I noticed that there were some places that I did not get the red covered very well. And rather than taking it back out to spray paint, I decided to use the folk art gold that I use on most of my projects. And I'm just putting it on not real heavily. I am using a chip brush. And what it's doing is adding another layer of gold. It is a different shade of gold, and I get pretty heavy coverage, but there are some places where the spray paint gold is showing through, and I like that just to give the extra layer and added dimension to this frame. After that gold has dried, I then start applying DIY's black wax. And I dip my brush in the wax and then dip my brush in a little bit of mineral oil, and that helps thin out the wax. So I'm not putting it on too heavily. I don't want a really dark frame. I'll be wiping away most of the black wax anyway. I just want it down in those detailed crevices. And after getting it all applied, it's time to start wiping it off. And I do that using a shop towel, going over everything really well with the shop towel. But then I pull out a dry chip brush, and that's what I had just there. And then I clean out some of the wax that gets down in the crevices and leaves too much. And that helps to spread it out so that I can then wipe it down with the shop towel. And then next is to, after I've let it dry for a little bit, I then pull out my rubbing buff, and I'm getting a little bit on my finger and wiping it onto the frame just in little bits at a time, because this stuff dries really fast, and I can see that I'm going to need some help in spreading it, so I do use that same chip brush. And I just keep going over it back and forth with rubbing some rubbing buff with my fingers and then spreading it with the chip brush, and just applying it back and forth until I get the effect or the look that I'm going for. I won't show it here because I need to buy more craft paper, but I will go over the back of this mirror with fresh new craft paper so that it will have a nice tidy back. And now I'll remove the paper, which, by the way, that paper was when I was printing some images from online, and the copier was set at front and back, so it printed front and back sides, and I couldn't use it for artwork, so I just decided to use it in this way for scrap paper. And some of that paper did get stuck in there from the paint, so I'm using my X-Acto knife to clean out underneath the edges and get the mirror as clean as I could. There was a little bit of paint on it, there was lots of grime, but I used the little scraper to clean off anything like that, and it cleaned up really well. I'm happy for that. And here it is. Sometimes I am so amazed at what can be done with ugly old pieces of decor to make them beautiful and loved again. And I am really happy with how this lovely mirror turned out, but you let me know what you think. Before I go on with the next projects, I wanted to take a minute just to remember Dolly Parton. I know all of us have been affected by her death. She touched so many of us through her beautiful music and her truly genuine spirit. She was so much more than her amazing talent. And Lord knows, she was a huge talent. But again, the person that she was and the lessons that she left us with will carry on, I hope, forever, because we need it. We need the messages that she left for us, that we should all be ourselves, that we should work hard, that we should dream, that we should love others, mind our own business, and let other people be. I hope that I'm not offending anyone, but that's my philosophy in life. And just watching Dolly and all the different shows I've seen on TV now, and the newscasts and the different bloggers and videos and you name it. I can't open any of my social media without seeing Dolly. And that's okay, because she left that mark on the people, and not just here in the US, but around the world. So for me, I felt that it was important to speak about her here on my video. I'll be honest, when I got the news, I was working in my studio, and my cousin, who's also a musician, sent me a text and said, Dolly's gone. And I just couldn't believe it, just like everyone else. And it really felt personal, because that's just the kind of person she was. She was so genuine and so down to earth that she made you feel like you knew her and that she knew you. So I just wanted to express my appreciation to her for not just the beautiful music that she brought into our lives, but the affirming love that she showed all of us and encouraged all of us to show as well. Thank you for allowing me this few minutes, and on to the next project. Next project is a pair of Artichoke candle holders that I thrifted on Saturday, just a few days ago. It was my birthday, and my husband and I took off on Saturday morning, August 22nd, and we headed over into East Tennessee. Now, we live on the border with Tennessee and Virginia in the tri-state area where the three meet. And so we're in Kentucky, and we decided to take a ride over through East Tennessee. It's one of the most beautiful areas that I've ever seen. And I was going to go a little bit farther, but we ended up going into Morristown, Tennessee, which is just an hour from our home. And why did I do that? Oh, there was a thrift store and a Mexican bakery that I wanted to visit. And so we went there and got some great baked goods. Oh my goodness, they were so good. And you just get that big platter and the tongs, and you get to choose as much as you want and get them yourself. So we kind of lost control a little bit, because you saw that full tray of goodies and it was just me and my husband. But they have lasted a few days. There's still one left at our house. I don't think he knows about it, but I do. Anyway, we had a nice day, and I broke my thrifting fast to go to a couple of thrift stores while we were over there. And I only spent like $7 between the two of them. I just didn't find anything, but it was in the afternoon. So, and also I know that I have got a huge stash here at my studio, and I really need to work through things before I bring any more back home. So I pretty much stuck to that. But long story short, I did buy these two candle holders because who could resist them? They're cute as they are, but I knew that I could make them more attractive and more up to date. So what I'm doing here is, after cleaning them off and taking the tags off the bottom, by the way, these were from Hobby Lobby, and I'm painting in Waverly chalk paint. The color is called Moss. And I give them 2 good coats. And after they were dry, I then applied 1 coat of clear wax. Now it looks like it's white going on, but when it dries, it does dry clear. And this is Waverly's wax. And I just brush it on all over the base as well. And the reason for doing this, and you probably know if you've seen me any of my videos before, is that I'm going to be applying a black wax, and I don't want to leave a lot of the black wax on the project. I'm going to be applying the wax and wiping it off, and when there is a clear wax that is placed on it before applying the dark wax or the black wax, I can be more in control of how much of the dark wax I leave on the piece and how much I'm able to take off. So that's a process that I learned from others, and it works really well. Now there are other clear waxes that can just brush on that work just as well. This is what I have. It is less expensive, so I tend to use it a lot for this specific step. And after I got it on there, I did take my shop towel and I didn't want to rub because I knew that it would rub off some of the paint. So as you can see here, I just wrapped the shop towel around it and then just pressed it in my hands really tightly. And then as you can see on the towel there, it did take off some of the green, but it's okay because I'm going for a kind of aged look, something that has layers and dimension. So the fact that a little bit of it came off is fine, but if I had rubbed it, I think it would have come off more so. And I dried it really well before applying the black wax. And another thing that I do when using the black wax is that I will pour a little bit of mineral spirits out, dip my brush in the wax and dip it in the mineral spirits, and that thins out the black wax so it doesn't go on as heavily. And that's a really good step as well to control how much black wax you're getting on your project. After getting it covered in the black wax, I then use my shop towel, as you just saw, and remove it in the same way that I removed the clear wax. Then I turn them over and I paint the bottoms so that I'll have a nice clean finish on the bottom as well. I stipple that on so that I don't leave brush marks. Even though it's going to be the bottom, I care about what the bottom looks like. And I do 2 coats. And then I put just a little bit of wax on that as well so that the whole finish is on all surfaces of these 2 candle holders. Next up, I am just doing a very light dry brush over both of the candle holders. It's called Plaster. It's by Waverly and it's a chalk paint. And when that has dried, I then get out my rub and buff and just lightly go over those artichoke leaves and the base as well. And then I start out lightly and decide to go a little heavier. And I also do the inside rim of where the candle fits into the holder. I do the base as well. And I'm hitting those high spots, just like something that has aged. I'm hitting those high spots with the rub and buff. And this is really what amps these candle holders up and makes them gorgeous. And here they are. I think they are so beautiful. What do you think? Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments. I really hope everything you've seen so far you've enjoyed and that you'll stick with me through this final project, which is to give this wooden tray a new look. Now this was given to me by a friend who was cleaning out her house, and a lot of craft supplies that had actually belonged to her mother years ago, back when decoupage was popular several years ago. And she gave me a lot of great things, and I've not had a chance to work on all of them, but this is one of the items, and it's this beautiful tray. And what I'm doing right there is just taking my X-Acto knife and cutting out some of the, it had a paper on there that was like the label that came with it. So I'm using, at this point, I have pulled out my new Waverly paint. This color is ivory. I don't usually get ivory. I usually use plaster. But when I put my order in for Walmart the other day, they were out of plaster and they subbed it with the ivory, which is fine. It works out okay. So I'm giving a good coat of the ivory to this centerpiece. Side note, who else likes to watch painting on fast forward? For me, it's so cathartic to paint, but it's also cathartic to watch painting, especially if it's fast forward. And while that first coat of paint is drying, I get into my transfers and I pull out the IOD Transfer Clementine, which is from last year's winter collection, and I had not used one piece from it, and I got it last year in the winter after it had been, well, before Christmas when it was released. And it's so beautiful that it's one of those that I have held on to. I have a bad habit of doing that with transfers. If it's something that's just so beautiful, I don't know, I seem to hold on to it, waiting for the perfect piece to use it on. I don't know why I'm like that, but I end up having transfers that I haven't used. And so in a way, it's not bad, because here I've got this brand new transfer package unused, so I have the whole thing to select from. Now here I'm putting on the second coat, and I decide to stipple it on. Again, I don't like brush marks, and so by using a chip brush, I pounce it on there and stipple the paint on rather than brushing it on. The bad thing about a chip brush, and this one in particular, it was an old one and it kept dropping little tiny pieces of the bristles from it. So I pulled out my X-Acto knife to pull those off. And after I get that second coat on there, then I pull out that same paint from Waverly in the color Moss, and I start applying it all around the wooden part of the tray. Now I toyed with the idea of using milk paint so that I would have some chipping and some crackling, but in the end I decided just to use this because I wanted this project. I didn't want to take any risks. I wanted to get it finished, and I decided to use this so that I wouldn't have that surprise that milk paint gives. Sometimes it doesn't crack very much. Sometimes it chips and all you have is chips, and I did not want a real chippy look with this particular project. So the Waverly won out over that other idea, but I love this color and it went on really super well. I did give it 2 coats of paint, and you can see there in the background the transfer that I decided to use out of the Clementine packet. After letting all of that paint dry really well, I pulled out my typography stamp from Prima Redesign, and I decided to use a gold ink on the stamp. I wanted to have it, of course, in the background of the transfer, and so I knew that I would have the transfer coming out from one corner out and it flowing into the middle of the tray. I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted the stamp to be in relation to where the transfers would go. I know that I wanted it to look like it was flowing out, and I wasn't sure that I wanted it to be on the entire white section or not, and I stamped it and then realized I should have used it all over. That I just made it a little bit harder on myself because I ended up having to restamp and do the other sections. And one of the things that I'm not crazy about this stamp is that it's all one large stamp. So I could not take out certain elements of it and put them where I needed them. I only could use the entire stamp. And there's a lip around the edges of that center part, so it makes it a little bit more challenging because down around the edges it's hard to get, or all around the edges it's hard to get the stamp pressed down because it's not a flat surface. But it worked out okay. It just was a few more steps that I had to take. After giving that gold ink ample time to dry and using my hair dryer to make sure that it was dry, I then applied the transfer. I have ruined things before with this ink because it's not archival, so therefore it's not permanent. If it's not good and dry, it is so easy to wipe off, or at least to smear it or even lighten it. So I want to make sure with this particular project that I don't do that. So I made sure it was very dry, and I'm being extra careful about not touching it while it's still drying. Now here, there were a few places I got some ink on the edges, so I'm painting over that. Okay, next day, and I'm in here in the evening. We had some errands to do today out of town, so it's in the evening, almost dark, so I'm a little bit late getting here today. But what I'm doing now is sanding down this beautiful green paint. I'm not doing a heavy sanding on it. I'm kind of just smoothing it out mostly, but also taking it down to the bare wood in some places around the edges where it would naturally age. After wiping it down from sanding, I then pull out the Sweet Pickins dark oil wax and start applying it to the green, and then I started spreading it all over the inside part too. And guess what? I wiped off the gold. I thought it would be dry. I mean, it had dried over 24 hours. It's obviously not a permanent paint, and it took off almost all the gold, but I was able to fix it in the end. I just re-stamped it very carefully, and it looks great. I'm happy with how it turned out, but I am upset that I forgot to spray it before I applied the dark wax, and I just got ahead of myself in a rush to get things done. And I do like how the dark oil wax changed the color somewhat of the ivory paint, made it a little darker instead of as bright. Most valuable lesson from this is that mistakes can always be fixed. I'm real happy how this turned out, and I'm definitely going to be using more of my Clementine transfers coming up. How do you like it? I think it turned out so pretty. And although I didn't plan for it, I'm really pleased with how all these projects go so well together. Of course, when you're using the same color of paint, that automatically brings things together, but I think they matched up really well. And here we are at the end of another video. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you more than you can know. It brings me such joy and happiness when I get comments from you who ask me questions about a project, or you need a little advice, or you just want to say hi, or you like one project better than the other. You know, it doesn't matter. I love all the comments, and I appreciate all of you for spending time with me and also showing an interest in my channel. You are helping me to grow my business, and it's something that I'm learning every day about myself, so it's a slow goer, but you help to push it forward a little more every day, and that brings me so much happiness. And so I can't thank you enough for your support. If you haven't liked and subscribed yet, I would love so much if you would do that, and follow me on my other social media accounts. I have Pinterest, I have Facebook, where I am most active, and I have Instagram. So look for me there. And I also have an Etsy shop. I will link all of those social media links in my comments if you're interested in following me further. And again, thank you. Thank you, thank you. And I'll see you next time.